Pronunciation Pro.
Pronunciation Pro.
Hello and welcome to the Pronunciation Pro podcast. My name is Annie Rudin and I am here today to help you. I'm here to help you learn how to speak English clearly and with greater confidence so that there can be more connection in your life and success. Today, we are continuing a series that we are calling Speak English Like a Pro. And we are going through different professions that a lot of our students have, and you included. And we're going to go through these professions and talk about vocabulary and how to pronounce the vocabulary within these professions and give dialogue and give tips on how to improve in your respective field. And we're just excited to kind of dive deep into specific niches. And so we want to give you that instruction today, or that help today. So today we are going to be focusing in on the profession of a therapist. We have several therapists within the Pronunciation Pro program. And so I wanted to provide you with this training, as well as, you might not be a therapist, but this is one of those areas that maybe you're like, I don't have a lot of vocabulary in this area, and I'm not sure how to pronounce some things. And so getting into this podcast episode, you will learn new vocabulary, how to pronounce these words in specific professions. So I think it's applicable to everyone. So let's kind of talk about this concept of a therapist. So a therapist, it can be referred to as a counselor or a psychologist or a social worker. This is kind of that mental health profession, something that is highly needed in our day to day, and such a beautiful gift that you are providing people. So we want to make sure that you're as successful as possible as you're interacting with your patients and your clients. Obviously, clear communication in this category is crucial. Having that clear, confident communication helps build trust and therapeutic rapport in these settings. So you're there with your client, you're there with your patient, and I don't know if it's called patient or client. I think it's more client-based in the therapeutic world. If you're a psychologist and kind of in more of the mental or in the medical realm, I think it's referred to as patient. So for our purposes, we're going to refer to it as client. So you're working with your client and you're wanting to build that trust, that mutual respect. And so how clear and empathetic you communicate, the better. So we want to create that rapport with your clients. All right, so some of the challenges that I've seen with our students who are therapists is you need to be able to use emotionally supportive and validating language. Okay, so that language, the way that we speak in a way that is supportive and validating. So that can be a challenge. So we'll kind of dive into that today. Another challenge is handling sensitive topics while sounding calm and confident. That is something that, you're in a high stress situation, a highly emotionally activated situation. And we want to make sure that you are able to stay grounded and feel confident, because if you're getting in your head about, well, how do I sound? Or am I unsure about the advice I'm giving? Your confidence really is key in portraying confidence to your client. So you want to make sure that you're feeling calm, you're feeling grounded, and that you have that confidence in your communication skills and that confidence in your mindset as you are working with your clients. Okay. Another challenge is that you need to be able to explain complex emotional, psychological concepts, and you need to be able to explain that clearly. So obviously the vocabulary and the explanations of these situations need to be practiced and refined. And you need to actively listen and respond with empathy. Okay, your tone really portrays that empathetic language. So we'll talk about more about that. So first, let's get into common vocabulary and phrases to practice when you're in the mental health profession. So words like overwhelm or overwhelmed. Okay, overwhelmed. I feel overwhelmed. 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 So it's first syllable stress, overwhelmed. We're going to stress that O, overwhelmed. One thing with this is we want to make sure the ed ending is there. So we don't want it to be overwhelmed, which often happens with our Spanish speaking clients, that ed ending. So it's the root word is overwhelm, and that M is a voiced sound. So we're going to end with a voiced D sound. So overwhelmed, overwhelmed. Okay, not overwhelmed. It's going to be overwhelmed. Okay, so practice that ending. Make sure you get the ending sound on there. A lot of our clients will drop off the ending sound, and we want to make sure that ending sound is clear. Another word is anxious. Anxious. Okay, anxious. Ang. So we have that nasal sound, kind of that ng sound in the back. Ang, and then we have the sh, kind of like be quiet. Sh. Anxious. Okay. Another word is, and that anxious is first syllable stress. Anxious. Triggered. So TR, whenever there's a TR at the beginning, a lot of times it becomes ch, that CH kind of type of sound. So train, tracks, triggered. So we want triggered. And again, that D sound at the end, triggered, not triggered. Nope, we're going to do triggered, straight to the D. Okay, triggered. I'm feeling very triggered by the things that my ex-husband said, triggered. Coping. So this word is going to have that long O, coping. I'm coping with the loss of my son. Coping, long O. Okay, and that ing ending, ing. Let's talk about that sound for a minute. So ing, a lot of times what I hear from our students is they'll end with an N sound instead of the NG. NG is towards the back of the mouth, so that ing ending is towards the back of the mouth. Ing. So your tongue comes up in the back of the throat. Ing. And then it's that G ending. So we always overemphasize sounds just to get a clear, really get our ear clearly hearing that sound. In connected speech, it's not going to be so pronounced and obvious, but when we're drawing attention to it and doing deliberate practice, we want to overemphasize it. So coping, ing, not coping, with that N at the front of the mouth. We want it to be there in the back of the mouth. So not coping, but coping, ing, coping, ing. Okay, another word, resilience. My children had to practice a lot of resilience when we moved. Resilience, or they're very resilient children. Resilient. Okay, resilience, so it's going to be that Z. A lot of times the S becomes a Z sound. Now there's not a really good way to know when an S becomes a Z sound, so you have to really tune your ear to that. So listening for that voiced versus voiceless sound. Resilience. resilience, yence. So there's an invisible Y in there. Resilience, resilience, resilience. Okay, resilience, resilience. So that second syllable stress, zil. That second syllable is what's getting stressed. Resilience. Okay, so zil, that S at the beginning is going to be a Z sound. Zzz, and you know it's a voice sound. You're going to put your hand on your throat and feel the vibration in your throat. Zzz, resilience. But then that C at the end is going to be an S, a voiceless S sound. Resilience. So as I'm going through this, something that I teach my students all the time is it's not how it's spelled, it's how it sounds. Okay, so we really are relying more heavily on our listening skills when learning pronunciation in English than we are kind of the spelling rules or the way it's written. Unfortunately, English is not very good at following pronunciation in the written form. Okay. All right, next word, trauma. Trauma. Again, that TR sound at the beginning is going to say more of the CH. Tra, tra. So we're going to drop our ah for that short O sound. Trauma. So first syllable stress, trauma. Okay, how about boundaries? Boundaries. Bow, ow, bound. Get that N in there. A lot of times my students would drop the N in the middle and not get that full pronunciation, the and then it sounds like boundaries. And we want that N in there. Boundaries, boundary. Okay. Validation. First syllable and third syllable stress. Validate. So long A in the middle of that because it is a stressed syllable. That validate, that third syllable is stressed. So we're going to get that full vowel pronunciation there. Validation. Shun, Tion, is going to have that SHUN kind of pronunciation. Shun, validation. Okay. I want you to really be saying this out loud with me because that's where you're really going to learn. Your ear is going to tune to it when you're saying these words along with me. Okay. Next one, vulnerability. Vul, it's going to be a dark L, so we're not going to fully touch. Vulnerability. So that T at the end is going to be that tap T, where we're going to pronounce it as a D sound. Okay. Vulnerability. So first, third, front to vulnerability, and fifth syllable stress. So these are these multisyllabic words where we don't want to drop any of the syllables in it, any of these sounds in it. We want to get that full pronunciation. So really move the mouth on these. Okay, and last one for our vocabulary, self-awareness. Self-aware, air. And a lot of my students will, with those R vowels, will not get the R fully in the back. And we need to make sure that we get that strong R. Awareness. Okay. Okay, so let's now go through. So I'm going to actually, let me say all those words again, and I want you to say them after me. So overwhelmed, anxious, triggered, coping, resilience, trauma, boundary, validation, vulnerability, self-awareness. Great job. I really, if you are in a position to be able to say these out loud, you may be in, hopefully you're in a car or somewhere where you can say these things out loud, because just thinking them is not going to train your mouth and your ear to be able to pronounce them correctly. You have to say them out loud for it to really stick. All right. So let's go over some phrases that are really helpful for therapists, psychologists, counselors, people like that. Okay. So how about, can you tell me more about that? Can you tell me more about that? Now I want you to practice that linking and connecting, okay? Can you tell, can you tell me, can you tell me more? Can you tell me more about that? About that. Okay, so we're going to, that T and that TH are going to move into each other. So about that. So you're going to close off on the T, but you're not going to release the T. You're going to move right into that TH. Can you tell me more about that? All right, how about this one? How did that make you feel? How did that make you feel? How did that how did that make you, how did that make you feel? Okay, we want to link and connect these words together so that they sound nice and fluid. And you have to practice that movement for it to get through smoothly. Now let's talk about kind of the intonation there. Actually, I'm going to move back to the first one. Can you tell me more about that? So a gentle, kind of empathetic way doing it, it's going to be a little bit softer. You know, you don't want to be loud in these situations when you're talking emotion and you're being empathetic in that way. So can you tell me more about that? You want to be clear, you want to be loud enough for them to hear, but if you're too abrasive, the intonation is going to be, can you tell me more about that? Okay, it's going to be like forced versus a softness. Can you tell me more about that? And a little more sing-songy, right? Can you tell me more about that? Or how did that make you feel? Feel. How did that make you feel? Instead of, you don't want rising intonation. How'd that make you feel? No, that's not the correct way of bringing intonation. Okay, how did that make you feel? We're going to bring down intonation at the end there. Okay, how about this one? It sounds like you're feeling, and then fill in the blank. You could say sad or overwhelmed or anxious. It sounds like you're feeling sad. Is that right? Okay, yes or no questions. We're going to rise in the intonation. It sounds like you're feeling sad. So that's a statement, so we're going to fall down. It sounds like you're feeling sad. Is that right? Okay, we're going to pull up on that intonation at the end. How about this one? Let's explore that together. Let's explore that together. Let's explore that together. So as far as stress patterns, we're stressing explore and together. Let's explore that together. Let's explore that together. And what do you need in this moment? What do you need in this moment? Okay, you can emphasize you. What do you need in this moment? Or you can emphasize need. What do you need in this moment? If we're really talking about your needs, something that you need here, what do you need in this moment? How can I best help you? Okay, so that's a phrase that I use a lot in my teaching is how can I best help you? Okay, and it helps me be able to show that empathy and that I'm here willing to help, but it gives the responsibility for my client to own their learning, own their responsibility in the interaction. Okay, what do you need in this moment, or how can I help you? Okay, how can I help you? Okay, do you hear the softness in that tone? Not, what do you need in this moment? What do you need in this moment? Okay, that's very forceful. It's very impatient sounding versus what do you need in this? What do you need in this moment? What do you need in this moment? Okay, do you feel the softness in that intonation? It's just because the intonation came down, it's gentler. It has a little bit more of those up and down the hills instead of just like, punching the sounds. It's just kind of rolling over the hills, intonation. All right, so let's talk about a little bit more of certain areas that need to be focused on. So we've talked a little bit about that soothing intonation for calm delivery. Okay, we really want that soothing, empathetic tone. And you'll probably keep that tone throughout, throughout your sessions, throughout your time with your clients or patients. And you want that calm, like grounded. I'm in control here. I'm the expert, but I'm here to help you. And that tone is very soothing. It's calm. It's gentler. And so you want to be really aware of that. Another area to focus on is that linking and connecting so that you sound more fluent in those empathetic responses. And that just comes with repetition. When you go through and you just repeat these common phrases, you work on that transition from word to word so that that's flowing smoothly. That really makes a big difference in just the just the fluency of those connections. And really another area to focus on with pronunciation is some of these longer emotional terms, such as, let's talk about let's do 4 more vocabulary words in this genre, but dysregulation. Okay, dysregulation. So 5-syllable word. We call these multisyllabic words. And often what I hear in multisyllabic words is that my clients will either blur through, the word, hoping that, nobody notices that they don't know how to pronounce it. Or they're just dropping syllables and not getting the full pronunciation. Okay, so let's give time to these words. So dysregulation, 2nd syllable and 4th-syllable stress, dysregulation. So we're going to really emphasize the vowels in those stressed syllables. Dysregulation. Dysregulation. So it has an invisible Y in there. Regulation. Dysregulation. We would need to help your dysregulation when you're talking to your clients. Okay. Psychotherapy. Psychotherapy. So it has that psi, which in the spelling, it's PSY. And so that can be quite confusing, but it's pronounced psycho, psycho. So that long I, psychotherapy, psychotherapy. So 1st and 3rd syllable stress and 5th syllable stress. So psychotherapy, another 5-syllable word. Psychotherapy. How about cognitive? Cognitive. Okay, in your brain, cognitive. Cognitive function. Okay, cognitive. Because that I is a reduced syllable, we're going to reduce it. Or it's a reduced, it's not a stressed syllable. We're going to reduce the vowel. Cognitive. Cognitive. Cognitive therapy. Okay. And another one, subconscious. 2nd syllable stress. Subconscious. Subconscious. All right, a lot of good vocabulary here for you to practice. And again, I hope you're saying this out loud so you're getting that muscle movement, you're getting that strengthening, you're getting that awareness in your ears. The more you say it out loud, the more you're going to hear yourself, and that matching, my speech and being able to say it back is so, so helpful. So if you just do little by little, over time, you're going to develop a strong vocabulary where you really understand clearly and can say it clearly. Okay. So how do we practice? How do we keep practicing this and keep building? Well, I recommend practicing role plays with trusted peers or a coach, or you can do it with yourself and record yourself. I'm going to go through a role playing dialogue with you in just a minute so that you can kind of hear that interaction, and then I am going to provide a downloadable worksheet for you in the notes in the description here so that you can get that for yourself. You can use kind of journaling to develop your therapy specific vocabulary in your voice. Journaling, or I actually love to see my students do audio recordings. So just like on an iPhone, you just go to voice memo and record yourself, speaking and talking about therapy specific topics and explaining certain things like you would to your clientele. I've just noticed in my work, doing these podcasts has helped me in being, better able to explain myself and to describe the things that I'm teaching. So I've done a lot of live classes, I've done a lot of podcasts, I've done a lot of videos. That repetition has helped it come very easily to me. Again, I know that I'm doing it in my native language, so that is a huge advantage that I have. And you have to do it in your non-native English, your non-native language. But the same thing applies. You have to get that repetition to be able to develop your own voice. So yeah, describe yourself, or record yourself explaining concepts like anxiety or boundaries, to be able to improve that clarity. And I do another skill I want you to practice is to learn to mirror your patient and mirror their language for better connection. And what I mean by mirror is we're kind of matching our patient's language. So it creates better connection. So if they're like, I'm feeling really anxious, and this is what it feels like. And it's like, to mirror that is like, okay, I see that you're feeling anxious. Here is, and this is what you're telling me. And here's here's the advice, or here's kind of where to go from that. But that active listening and mirroring or matching not only their language, but their body language, and being able to help, it creates that connection with other people. All right. So let's dive into this role playing scenario with a therapist. So, the scene would be you're in a quiet therapy office. The patient is settling in and the therapist begins the session. So I'll do therapist and then patient, and we'll kind of go back and forth. Hi, I'm glad you're here today. How have you been feeling lately? Honestly, I've been feeling really anxious, especially at work. Thank you for sharing that. Can you tell me a bit more about what that anxiety feels like for you? Well, my heart races, I get this tight feeling in my chest, and I can't concentrate. It's like something bad is going to happen, even if nothing's wrong. That sounds overwhelming. You're not alone in feeling that way. It's more common than you think. What do you usually do when that anxiety shows up? Well, sometimes I try to take deep breaths. It helps a little, but not always. That's a great start. Deep breathing is one tool. Would you be open to exploring a few more techniques together today? Yeah, I think I need that. Perfect. Let's build a toolbox that you can use anytime you need to feel more in control. Okay, so that's just an example of a dialogue. One thing that I love about dialogues is that it helps you build in not only the pronunciation, but the intonation, the rhythm, and it feels more natural and conversational. So basically, what I did is I used ChatGPT. You can just Google ChatGPT, and I put in the prompt, give me a dialogue between a therapist and a patient that would be very common and easy to, well, I guess what would I say? Or what did I say? I'm going to go back here. Can you provide a dialogue as a script between a patient and a therapist? Okay. And you can do that and add in, talking about anxiety or talking about depression or talking about these specific tools that you want to describe to your client. So ChatGPT is a great tool for all of that. So I really, really want you to be using that to create your own practice materials that are specific to you in your industry, in your situation. Okay, so dialogue is a great way to practice. Okay, so here's your call to action. Here's what I need you to be doing. I want to invite you to practice some of these phrases, these dialogues in daily conversation. Really practice using them. Practice saying them out loud and doing it in your own, private time, and but getting it out loud, and also doing it in real conversations, practice it in different environments. I know you're all in, you're in different stages of your English development. Do what is, feels safe to you, but also I want you to be pushing those edges into areas of growth. So outside your comfort zone is where you're going to grow the most. So I really want you to kind of push that and say, okay, what's one thing I can do more today? Or one area I can kind of reach out today and use this language more in my daily life. All right. So I have some practice material for you in the description here. A link for that. I encourage you to, download those and practice. And, as always, we would love to help you in the Pronunciation Pro program. So come join us and get on our mailing list. I'll let you know when there's different promotions or opportunities for you. And so come join us. There's links in the description of how to get involved at Pronunciation Pro. We also have private trainings that you can do with our trainers if you're really wanting to get the results that you need as quickly as possible. That private training is the way to go. All right, glad to have you here today. I hope that was helpful, and we'll continue on with this Speak English Like a Pro series. If there is a profession that you want us to dive into, just comment and we will add it in. All right, thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye.
Pronunciation Pro.
Pronunciation Pro.
Pronunciation Pro.